It's 7:33. A bit later on in the program, we are going to talk about the Renter Index. It's the first ever index that takes a look at rents throughout the province of British Columbia, and it was actually announced last Monday by the Nonprofit Housing Association of BC and Van City. They are the two groups that put the index together. And I was working on a story about it that day, and I'd put the call out there for people who paid a lot of their income to rent, more than 50%, because we wanted to talk to them for the story. And I got a response from one gentleman who said, I don't pay any rent at all. I live in a mobile type facility. And that got me to thinking, you know what? There are people out there who have found ways to get around paying high rent, who still live in pretty cool surroundings in and around Metro Vancouver. If you saw the story I filed on Global BC yesterday, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. His name is Justin, and he joins me on the line now. Justin, good morning.
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. Talk a little bit. You sent me an email saying, you know what, I prefer the mobile lifestyle. I don't see myself going back to any kind of bricks or mortar house. Tell us about how you live.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much it. Like right now, it's a beautiful wet coast morning, as you know, and I'm actually parked right next to a proverbial river, so that's kind of funny, actually.
So you literally are living in a van down by the river.
I'm living in a van down by the river, and as I explained to you, I've had a lot of history doing this in the past, and beginning of this year when I came into some money, and the time came to make a decision, should I go into renting a place again? Should I put the money into a mortgage and end up in a dead end? I have a lot of friends my age that I grew up with here in this city. I grew up in Vancouver, and all of them are pretty much stuck going nowhere, or they've had to move out of the city, and I didn't want to see myself doing that. And I don't mind the mobile lifestyle at all, so I decided, well, why wait until I'm retired and save up enough money to go buy an RV and go explore and, have some fun, too? Why don't I combine the two of them and do them right now? So that's where I am.
And how did you find it? Because this isn't just, an old rundown cube van. This is a pretty souped up home you have. Tell us about how you found it and what it's like.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's amazing what you can find in the USA compared to Canada. I searched the internet for months, paying rent at the time, to find this particular model. And what I wanted was something that could fit in easily in the cities and kind of be a good stealth camper. It can be parked almost anywhere, even in a mall parking lot or at meters in the city, and something I could drive around every day. I didn't want something that stood out like an eyesore, and also something that would take up more than 2 parking spots, and that just annoys people. So when I found this rig, I snapped it up and had it imported into Canada, and then I set aside some money to make it livable, because a lot of RVs aren't livable out of the box. Like, you can't live in them full time. They're designed to go from your house to a trailer park and plug it in. And that's what they call a vacation. But I need it to be self-sustaining everywhere I go, and I've got no plugins. So I had to install solar power systems, so I got that all set up. So I have electricity generating. Even on days like today, I'll have some power generating, believe it or not. And I had to install some good heating systems, so I ended up putting a marine fireplace in for boats. It's actually a propane fireplace that keeps it all nice and toasty. So it's great for the ski hills, too.
It's funny when you mention that you have the fireplace for boats, and there are people who get off the grid by moving onto their boats, but that seems almost, for some reason, for whatever reason, it seems to be more acceptable than van life. It almost feels like, or do you feel like people consider you to be kind of homeless?
That is absolutely amazing that you mentioned that, because somebody mentioned that to me on my YouTube channel the other day. They said, how come if you live on a sailboat, it's considered almost high class, but if you live in a luxury bus, you're still considered homeless? It just, to me, I don't understand that either. I think it's just a stigma of sometimes having a low-income people in poverty that are living in regular vans and cars on the street, whereas mine is actually a full-on motorhome. It's self-sustaining. So there is a difference there, and the average Joe in the public probably doesn't know the difference by looking on the outside of the vehicle. So I think that's probably what it really comes down to.
And you live in 130 square feet.
Yes.
But you've got a regular size bed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, here's the list. I've got a bed. I've got a kitchen. I have heat. I have running water, hot and cold on demand, and all on propane. I have a wet bath, and that's very common with small motorhomes like mine and with boats. So people live on boats also know what that means. What that means, it's a one-piece washroom. So you stand above the toilet and you actually shower over the toilet, and it washes the whole washroom at the same time.
It's multifunctioning, exactly.
Yeah.
And you work out of, it's not like you're jobless and you're just rambling around in a van. You hold a job, you have internet, you have a computer.
I do. I have internet. I work on several websites. I run the YouTube channel, as you know, and I do work full-time. I've actually been able to cut my shifts down a little bit, though, since I moved into this lifestyle, which is actually something that's quite nice. I used to work 6 days a week just to sustain a small apartment, and now I can work 4 days a week comfortably and have a few days off each week to go and do a little bit of traveling, exploring.
Do you ever feel like you need more space?
Actually, not at all. I have met couples living in Volkswagen Westphalia vans. So if they can do that, then mine is an actual mansion compared to them.
And you talk about, I think you used the phrase urban camping, and this is, a lot of other people that do this.
Oh, I know tons of people who do this, and it's amazing how humans can adapt to small spaces. In some countries there are apartments the size of these camper vans and small motorhomes. I do know some people living in much larger rigs too, and I will point out that larger ones actually cost more, or actually cost less generally when it comes to used RVs. And that's because they're big and people don't want them, especially for this type of lifestyle. They're hard to drive. They're expensive. You can't park them everywhere. And the van size is just perfect for me. Now, as growing up as a kid, I was always the type that liked to build forts and stay in tree houses, and I never wanted to go back in the house. So I think there's a little bit of that still left,
Probably. How do you deal with bylaws? Because a lot of municipalities and such, you're not technically supposed to be overnight camping and living on the street in a vehicle.
Well, I'll tell you how I deal with bylaws. I don't tell anybody that I live in it. I certainly don't go on radio programs or put up videos on YouTube or anything like that. And
you do all of those things.
Yes, I do. It's very selective enforcement. In all the years that I've done this on and off, Jill, over 15 years ago I used to do this as well. And Vancouver used to come down quite hard on us. We never would get tickets, but we would quite often get warning notices or be told to move on. However, I haven't seen that for many years now, and I have not heard that from any of my fellow van dwellers around the city lately. So it's good. I think people are more respectful. You just got to know to move around and not stay in one spot and take care of your vehicle. And, be a part of the community. Don't be an eyesore.
And you actually called the police when you saw a break-in.
Yep. That's happened a few times, but more recently in North Vancouver, I happened to witness a break-in at an electronics store down near Capilano Mall, and I happened to be parked across from it. So I got on the phone, called the police, and talked to them on the phone while I was watching what was happening. So the police were very grateful for that they had the extra eyes and ears on the ground for them down here. So it does come in handy for them in some ways. We're not a problem for the police. We've been told before that we're a non-issue to them. If they get a complaint, of course, they have to act on it, and I understand that.
Sure. How much do you think it costs you per month to live in your small RV?
Well, if I want to be frugal, I can get away with about $400 a month, and that'll include everything from gas and propane and groceries. And a lot of the costs are the same as living in an apartment. The only difference is you don't actually pay a landlord rent, and you're not paying for things like hydro for electricity. But you've got to take care of that yourself. But it can go much higher than $400 a month because sometimes I like to go explore. I like to go up to the mountains. I like to go over to the Gulf Islands or to Victoria. So, of course, the cost can go quite a bit higher then. But it's disposable income, and it's my choice. I'm not forced into it. So,
Oh, you think you'll ever live in a house again?
You know what? If somebody were to say, Justin, I'm going to give you the keys to this mansion or this house, and it's all yours, or I win it or something like that, I will take it. I will park my van in the driveway, and I'll rent the house to someone else.
And you'll stay in the van.
You bet.
All right. Well, it's interesting to hear that and to hear how many other people are doing that around Metro Vancouver. Justin, thanks so much for sharing your story with us this morning.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. That is Justin. He lives, as he said, right this moment in a van down by the river.